Hello, everyone, and welcome to the big show. This is Investing and Trading Live, sponsored by Trading Academy. If you're a first-time listener, thank you for stopping by. As always, I am your host, Josh Lilquist, and I have my good friend and my good pal, and he is the one and the only Mr. Al Connickson, looking good, even though we are not on video. We are just on audio today, and I surprised him today because he's been putting his makeup on every single week, his nice suit. Today he looks great, and there's no video today.
Yeah, no more standing in front of the mirror for hours getting ready.
Exactly. How you doing today, Al?
I feel much more relieved now. I feel really good, Josh. How about you?
I'm doing really good. It's always a good time talking about the financial markets with you and our financial family over the radio waves here and on the podcast. It's Investing and Trading Live, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. We got an action-packed show for you here today. We're going to do a quick market update. We also have seen more earnings this week. We had a great move in the market, especially the first part of the week, and things kind of slowed down as they got into a supply zone with some selling pressure. And that's what I want to talk about here today, is a lot about having demand areas and supply areas, which we call zones, to have a level of interest, whether you want to be a buyer or a seller. And it's not just getting into the markets and just hoping something works out or hoping it goes a certain direction. It's having an actual set strategy, set rules, odds, probabilities. And that's how you make smarter investing decisions. And that's what it's all about. And that's why a lot of people are listening to the show. We have thousands and thousands of listeners here in the metro area, and potential millions on the global podcast. By the way, we're going to make this the number one global podcast for the financial markets at one point. We're going to be recognized for that, hopefully at one point for that. But with these great moves in these markets, just with earnings, as I mentioned earlier, it just spells opportunity, and really opportunity for growth for the American people. Because if there's a reason that somebody wants to do better financially, which everybody has some sort of reason, but you got to find that reason. Once you do, you have to act upon it. You have to take action and actually go do something maybe a little bit different than you have done. So let's talk about the markets here today before we get into all that good stuff. Obviously we had, I believe, pltr had their earnings call this week, and it was a kind of a blockbuster earnings. They actually had good earnings and great revenue. But the interesting part about that is the market dropped considerably. A big time drop. Down about 15% from the market on the, looks like the 6th. So we're just seeing that with not correlating to what the earnings quote unquote says. And that's why we have supply and demand zones, as I kicked off the show, as areas where you want to be a willing buyer or seller, but have a reason for that based off of institutional order flow. You had Roblox on Thursday had earnings, another blockbuster move, great earnings, which was up about 19%, but the revenue was down, was a surprise of down about 12%. And what happened with this one is it was actually down roughly about 22% on the open. So another opportunity, right? There's actually strategies with options to have earnings plays based on, the right way to do that. We'll talk a little bit about that a little further down the road, but there's opportunities there. Another one I just want to discuss that a lot of people really know about is Disney. Disney had earnings, I believe it was on Monday, or it was within this last week here, and they also had good earnings, up 10%, but the revenue was also down, but it was only down 0.17%, and here's the interesting part about that. The market was actually down about 10%, and that's a big move for Disney.
That's correct.
So when you have supply and demand zones, Al, and levels of opportunity where you want to be a buyer or a seller, and odds and probabilities, these earnings calls doesn't really matter to you, does it?
Well, it depends on what you know. You mentioned one thing that people can do. If you understand options, there's some fantastic strategies you can use during earnings season. But here's the problem. Most people just guess. They think something is going to happen. Maybe they even know that earnings are going to be up for a particular company. But there's more than just the earnings part of it. You mentioned revenue. But what's as important, maybe even more important, is forward guidance. What are they saying? Because what they are reporting is what's already happened. You can't go back and trade on that. But what you want to do is make sure going forward that you're making a good investment or a good trade. So most people guess if you don't know how to use the right strategies during earnings, it might be better for you not to do anything during earnings.
Yeah, no trade or investment is a good investment because you're protecting your capital.
Exactly. That's the bottom line. You have to protect your capital. And that's where most people fall apart. They don't know how to protect what they have. And also, on the opposite side, they don't know how to identify and take a profit when they have a profit.
Correct.
But, what we're seeing right now, we're in earnings season. So you've got the earnings season. That's impacting the market. You have still the impact of the yield on the bonds. That's having a big impact on the market. And we see that fluctuate. When the yield goes up, typically the market goes up with it. When the yield goes down, typically the market goes down. And that can fluctuate pretty much daily or certainly weekly.
And looking at the 10-year, that's about 4.5% as we're doing the show right now.
Right. And that's pretty much the one that people look at when the 10-year yield goes up or down. That has a big impact on the market. And then we're still also waiting on the Fed. What is the Fed going to do? Are they going to raise rates? Are they going to lower rates? Probably not raise rates. They will probably lower rates, but when are they going to do it? Those are questions that have an impact on the market. But what's really important, Josh, we can go through these different situations, earnings, yield, the Fed, and typically the initial reaction, which can be big, is short-lived. So what we really want to do, if you want to do this on a consistently profitable basis, you have to be able to use something that's reliable and repeatable. And here's I guess the bottom line is with most things in the world, to be successful, you have to follow the money.
Yep.
And who has the money? Well, what we call the smart money, the Wall Street investor companies, the hedge fund managers, the pros. They're responsible for about 80% of stock market movement. So what that means is we need to track their movements. And if you learn how to read a price chart, you can follow the trail of that money.
Yeah, and that's the key of supply and demand. And we kicked the show off of that, or in this segment really, and I want to kind of end the segment with that as well, because once you can understand where the smart money is moving the markets, that's where you get in with low risk, high probability, high odds in your favor.
That's a quality trade.
That's a quality trade, but you know that all in advance before you actually get in that investment or trade. And we discuss that, and we show you how all that works in these investing classes that I'm about to give away seeds to, where you can see where the news or the earnings or the Fed, it doesn't matter what they're doing. It's just going to make the market move probably where it was going to go anyways, faster. So that's why you need those odds in your favor and those probabilities and an actual strategy. We have a strategy that we've had for over 26 years on how to make smart investing decisions. So to come in and check this out, 210 for 2 seats for an investing class locally here in Bloomington or in a neighborhood near you. We're going all across the metro here, making sure that we get in your backyard and help you with the financial markets. Text investing to the number 210-210. We got a lot more to discuss. That segment went by so fast. Stay tuned. This is Josh and Al, Investing and Trading Live. We will be right back.